You might remember us, the ones in the red shirts.
We can't afford guns being the leading cause of death for children and teens in this country.
Whether you're Republicans or Democrats, you can't look away.
We're not going to shut up until we get the change we deserve.
Thoughts and prayers are no longer enough. We need to take action now.
You didn't get this far by saying you can't. You didn't get this far by just being mediocre. You moms demand action, and that's what we demand.
Welcome to Movement Builders, a show about the people ending gun violence in America. All of us.
I'm Kaylin Ford.
And I am Nikita McDaniel. And today, we're stepping into a powerful and timely conversation. We're joined by Representative Justin J. Pearson of Memphis, who stood at the forefront as part of the Tennessee 3, demanding that lawmakers honor survivors of gun violence with meaningful action.
Yes. In the wake of the horrific shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville in 2023, Representative Pearson joined Representatives Justin Jones and Gloria Johnson in protesting against Republicans' inaction, along with gun violence prevention advocates. They raised their voices and demanded that their fellow lawmakers meet the moment with the urgency it deserved. Republicans responded by expelling him and Representative Jones from the Tennessee House of Representatives, but that did nothing to silence their voices. And after winning re-election, they are still at the State House doing everything they can to make their communities safer alongside Tennessee moms and students.
That's right, Kaylin. To talk more about that grassroots work on the ground, we're honored to be joined by Tennessee Moms Chapter Leader, Barbara Esteves-Moore. Representative Pearson and Barbara, welcome.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, y'all, we have so much to talk about. I'm super excited to have you both here today with us. But let's just start with a very simple question about what brought each of you to the gun violence prevention movement. And Barbara, why don't you go first?
Sure. When I look back and I think about how I got involved, I think back to 1999 when I was a young reporter working, covering schools and education in Tennessee, and the Columbine school shooting happened. And it was a shock to the system. We'd never seen it. I remember sitting in the newsroom and watching the students climb out of the window. And then fast forward to 2012, the Sandy Hook shooting happened, and I was a young mother. My daughter was in elementary school. She was very close to the same age as the children killed that day. And I started to kind of look around and say, what's going on here? And I think for me, the advocacy work started to happen when I realized there was something I could do to try to make a difference and to try to stop. For me, it started with school shootings, but now it's expanded into all of gun violence. And so that's how I got involved. I went to a mom's meeting and it took off from there.
That's amazing. For me, I think our community in Memphis suffers a lot from gun violence. In fact, in the year 2023, 400 people were killed by homicides in Memphis.
Wow.
That was the highest number in modern recorded history.
Wow.
And how many families got shattered, right, from that. And that year started, for me, actually, in two really difficult ways. Tyree Nichols was killed and beaten by police officers, and my classmates had actually been shot. One of my classmates, Larry Thorne, was shot and killed on January 10th. And January 24th, I would be elected to serve as the state representative. And so a lot was happening just at that time in my life. And it would be the Covenant School shooting on March 27th, 2023, that really, really catapulted me into participating more actively in the gun violence prevention movement. I'd grown up seeing what happened at Sandy Hook, as Barbara was talking about. I'd experienced a couple of those active shooter situations, school lockdowns, but it became so real when I'm sitting in my office and an assistant comes in saying something terrible's happened. And one of our colleagues' assistant child is at the Covenant School and carrying this hope that this would be the moment things were going to change. Yes. That this was going to be it, and getting disappointed, but realizing that our community wasn't quitting on the hope, wasn't quitting on that vision. That's what really inspired me. And that inspiration, turned into something, right? An extraordinary movement in Tennessee, an executive order, a special session, and that momentum continues to grow today and continues to inspire me.
Wow. Thank you both for sharing with us. Representative Pearson, and I'm going to call you Justin. It's also difficult for me to call you Justin, so forgive me if I call you Representative Pearson. That moment when the Tennessee Three stood with survivors and families to speak the truth was a very powerful moment. Talk to us about that moment when you decided to join the protest on the House floor. What was on your mind?
I remember sitting at my desk and Representative Jones was right in front of me, and he looked back at me and he said, "Pearson, we've got to do something." And I looked at him and I said, "I know." And I went upstairs to my now wife, Oceanette, and I was like, "I don't know what we're going to do, but we got to do something." And she and I, in essence, sort of started to discuss, what can we do, right? They're not going to pass a law today. They didn't allow us to even speak about the protesters who had shown up, 7,000 people. We couldn't even welcome them to the Capitol. And so we decided that a peaceful protest in between legislation would be it. And so I reached out to Justin, he reached out to Gloria, and in minutes, what has become a historical moment happened really because 7,000 people showed up. And I love to remind people, particularly in this movement, like we all have power. And sometimes your power is inside of the halls and sometimes it's outside. But what effectuated that change with Barbara and our gun violence prevention movement was they inspired some courage within me, some courage within Representative Jones, some courage within Representative Johnson, that if I'm being frank and honest with you all now, had all those folks not shown up, I can't say we would have went to the well of the House floor demanding that their voices be heard. Right? I can't say that for sure. I would like to think I still would have done something like that, but there is something really powerful about a movement of people who are unwilling to be deterred, that inspires action, that changes the future for us. But it's important to have people who are in positions of power and people who are in other positions of power, internally and externally, that's pushing the opportunity for more justice forward.
That's right. And courage is contagious. So when folks saw you, they also had courage. It went two ways, right? To see their lawmakers stand up and respond to this gave other folks, I'm sure, courage to continue to be there and to continue to speak out. So having that power on both sides of that legislative desk, right? In the lawmaker and also in the grassroots folks who are there to support them, to back them up, but also to hold folks who don't act accountable, which is powerful.
That's absolutely right. And I think that's what we have to consistently come up against when you're standing up against the NRA or the Tennessee Farmers Association or these other organizations. It's an attempt to dilute that you have any ability to change things. Right? Like ultimately, that is where people who want this system to keep operating, to keep functioning the way it is, that's right where they want us. That your protesting does nothing, your letter writing does nothing, your postcard writing does nothing. They want us to think all the things you think you're doing to move the needle is amounting to zero. But that is not the case. Even in a state like Tennessee, we've seen fewer gun bills since 2023. The governor signed an executive order mandating that if you buy a firearm, you have to get a mandatory background check. In Tennessee, that's an executive order that we made happen together from the protests, as you said, I love that, on both sides of the desk, right? For our advocacy on both sides of the desk. Like we still have power. And in a period of time that can feel so hopeless, reclaiming that power in community and in organizations like this one is so special and so important for us to do.
I love that. And I think that's such a timely call to action. And, you know, Barbara, thank you for joining this movement. Thank you for being here as a parent and as a concerned member of your community that got off the sidelines and said enough is enough. I grew up in Newtown, Connecticut. My family still lives there. And it's so personal to me to hear when folks say, I was moved to action because of this. I think it's a beautiful way to honor the victims and the family members and the survivors by saying, you know what, we're going to keep fighting so this never happens again. Representative Pearson, you were expelled from the House of Representatives for taking that stand. But voters saw that you were willing to fight for them, and they reelected you in a big way. So talk about that experience. What did that feel like? And what was kind of going through your mind, both in the moments that you were being kicked out and in the moments when you got to come back in and be even more vindicated in some ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. April 6th, the day we got expelled, was extremely difficult. I woke up crying, Oceanae and I, because we knew what was going to happen. And we knew what we had to do was fight for what we believed about democracy, fight for what we believed about justice, fight for what our faith called us to believe. And it was hard. And people see the pictures and the things. But that was one of the more difficult days of my life. And to see my parents witness that nearly all white group of people expelling two young black men who are one of the youngest elected officials in the state. It was extremely difficult, but I knew that I was on an assignment to defend our right to protest, but also to defend our cause as just. And the cause of standing up for those 3 adults who were killed at Covenant schools and those 3 9-year-old babies, but also the hundreds in Memphis and Shelby County, the thousands who over the years, because of the laws of the Tennessee legislature, made their deaths more likely. They deserved a voice in this fight too, because there are a lot of people who have died by homicide, who have died by suicide, who have died in really horrific ways that we could have prevented, and we haven't done that. And so when I look at the work that I had to do on April 6th, that's what it was. But it was painful. But I also felt unbroken, unbowed at the end of the day, because there were thousands of folks in the galleries outside, everybody from Mom's Demand in every town and March for Our Lives. Like, we were all there in the state of Tennessee where they say, like, no good is going to happen there, as if there's no movement there, right? And we were there in force. And then just a week later, 3,000 people marching down the city of Memphis, Main Street, saying, we care about our democracy and our representation, and you all were wrong. The people made the right choice the first time. And to be reinstated is just one of the best feelings ever. Just one of the best feelings ever. And the words that God gave me then was like, you can't expel hope, right? You can't expel our fight.
Yes.
And that is what we have to carry with us indefinitely, because people in positions of power, they have the tool of expulsion, right? They can take your seat, they can take your job, but we can never let people take our fighting spirit, never take our hope, never take our belief in this world that is rid of gun violence.
Wow, you said that so beautifully. We know that the legislative landscape in Tennessee is definitely tough. I remember when I first started with Everytown as an organizing manager in 2016, Tennessee was my state, and I was like, wow. Instead of passing strong gun laws, we've actually seen lawmakers weaken gun safety policies in recent years. But you all are still standing out here with the good fight and keeping it going. So tell us about the GVP work that you're doing, and why don't you start first, Barbara?
I mean, yes, it is challenging in a state with a Republican supermajority to try to enact common sense gun laws. But like Representative Pearson said, we're making those incremental changes slowly but surely. And what we've been talking about a lot lately is trying to find new strategies and tactics, right? And so we really shifted last year after the presidential election. We took a step back as a state and said, okay, how are we going to move forward in a supermajority state, in a supermajority country, for all intents purposes? And we decided to look for ways outside of the legislature to start doing some things that we could actually make happen. And that led us to change some of our priorities. And one of the biggest changes for us, it began last year, was focusing on domestic violence dispossession in Tennessee. And we formed a committee, and we started just a grassroots movement. Is the only way I can describe it. Is we had a team of moms, volunteers from across the state, and they began to figure out how they could try to change this domestic violence dispossession form. And I'll kind of take a quick step back and just kind of throw out, I had kind of jotted down some statistics. According to the Metro Office of Family Safety, between 2018 and 2023, 34% of domestic violence homicide perpetrators who killed their victims with a firearm were prohibited from possessing the firearm at the time of that death. And so what we had looked at was that there is this form that happens when a judge issues an order of protection against a domestic violence perpetrator. And when he issues that order, that person is no longer by law in Tennessee allowed to possess a firearm. So they're supposed to then fill out this form, and it's basically all the honor system. They fill out the form and say that if they do have a firearm, they'll turn it over to a third party. But Tennessee is the only state that uses this type of form that doesn't ask for any identification of who the third party is, where they're keeping their firearm. So there's no accountability whatsoever.
No accountability.
No. And so we saw, okay, let's see if we can close this loophole. So we started going to visit order of protection courts all over the state, in Memphis, in Knoxville, in Nashville, watching the proceedings, just seeing what happened. Did the judge ask the perpetrator if they had a gun? I went to one proceeding and the judge never asked. He never asked. And others did. And we saw sort of a mixed bag out there. And we were really particularly following an effort that had started in East Tennessee in Scott County, where they had a judge who took the initiative to change the form herself. And she required identification of the third party and identification of where the gun was going to be held. So we kind of took that model and we went to courts, observed, and then asked to speak with judges afterwards. We would call and arrange meetings with judges, and we told them about the loophole that we saw. We told them about what Scott County was doing, and we asked, can you change your form? Because the judges have the authority to change the form if they would like. And so one by one, we've been sort of doing this across the state for the past year.
Wow.
We've currently visited 16 counties, met with 15 judges, and seen 10 counties update their form
That
to
is
include
amazing.
identification. Yes.
Yes, clap it
So
up.
this year, what we're doing is we're trying to take it a step further, and we have a two-prong approach, a legislative approach and an administrative approach. We're trying to push forward a bill that would come in front of the legislature that would close the loophole statewide, and that would seal the deal and make the change. At the same time, we've gone to the Domestic Violence State Coordinating Council that has the power to also change the form. And we've asked them to change it administratively because they oversee all the forms that are used in courts in the state. So we're kind of doing a two-pronged approach this year, while we also continue to go around and observe courts and talk to judges.
Barbara, that's amazing. That work is inspiring. It's strategic. I love that you're using every tool at your disposal to make this change. And I think it's one of those things where people would be shocked to know that there's an honor system for domestic abusers, right? You know, we can have real polarized politics in this country, but that's something that we can find common ground on, right?
Right.
Absolutely. But the fact that that doesn't exist, or it was just judge by judge and let's hope for the best, had so many folks falling through the cracks, had so many folks not really having to follow the rules. And that's incredible work. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's really, really, really fascinating, and hopefully a blueprint for other states who want to do this.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. The blueprints. Y'all bringing the blueprint in Tennessee.
I love it. Yes.
What about you, Rep. Pearson?
One, I'm very excited about what Barbara is doing and want to see how I can lend any support to that effort, especially with judges in my county, Shelby County, because I have relationships with a fair number of those folks, and I want to help to make sure we change the form in Shelby County before the end of this year. Let's make that our goal. And also the administrative courts. If it's the AOC, we can get some letters from every Democratic representative to them, recommend them that they update the form. So you'll get at least 24 people who can support in that effort. And so, again, you got to have people inside and people outside.
Yes,
and this is how we leverage power, right?
Right.
And so let's do that, and we'll connect.
Deal.
To make
That
sure
would
we
be
get
amazing.
That done. We're going to get that done.
Yeah.
I can promise you. And then I'm always one of the folks who has written some of the most gun violence prevention legislation in the State House. The 113th session, I think I was number one with over 20 pieces of legislation.
Wow.
And I continue to sponsor or co-sponsor legislation that I believe is going to help us to end this gun violence epidemic, making sure we have extreme risk protection orders. I wrote the first bill in our state to ban the use of what they call Glock switches. And my bill did not pass when I presented it, but the next year someone else presented a bill to ban Glock switches and it did pass. And I'm just
Amazing.
like, as long as it passes,
Right.
that's the thing.
You paved the way.
That's right.
Yes, you
right.
did.
They create the template for
Yep.
people to follow.
You built the road, then somebody
that's
had
right.
to drive down it.
Somebody had to drive down it, and I'm fine with that because I think, is it all the progress we want, all the progress we need? No. But are we going to make some steps as long as we never quit? Yes. And so even when I'm presenting bills to ban access to assault weapons and have gun storage laws, right? They may not pass right now, but they ensure that we don't let this conversation go. They serve as a deterrent in some ways to some of the horrid legislation that's out there, that they know there are people who are advocating for the antithesis of what some folks are trying to do when it comes to harmful legislation that make it easier for gun violence to be perpetrated or committed. And there's one bill that someone has written for this legislative session that I'm working with to ask them not to present, because I think it would be harmful to our efforts and to the work that we've been building over the years. And so I've got legislation, but it's also what do we do in advocacy? What do we do administratively to deal with the systemic problems? And I think that's the way, just like as a movement, we have to look at things. We can't just have there's only one way. If we don't get a law that does this, then it's nothing. It's like, okay, if you can't get a law, can you get an executive order?
Mm-hmm.
All right, can't get an executive order? Let's see if we can do something administratively through a department. Right? We have to always think on our feet of what can we do? And whenever you feel like there's nothing I can do, then it's time to go to the well of information within our movement, within our organizations, within our cities, within our states, and say, hey, I feel tapped out. Because there's something someone is doing in another place that you can say, oh, let me try that, which is actually how I got the idea for Glock switches at the Office of Gun Violence Prevention at the White House. We had a convening, and I had never heard of Glock switches, had never heard of 80% guns and things like this. But colleagues in Philadelphia or New York or other places had. And so I was able to come back home and bring that legislation forward. And again, it ultimately, in a different iteration, became law. And so there's always something we can do. We just have to keep looking for it.
We have to keep looking for it. And there are very many pathways to it. I like how you explain that. And I'm also remembering it's a marathon and not a sprint.
That's
so
right.
Thank you for, not giving up and always looking for the way in. And guess what, y'all? We know that we need to go all in the upcoming midterms to make sure that we get folks out to vote. And that makes our voices heard, right? That's something that's very important. Barbara, what are you all doing out there to make sure this is happening?
Well, we have a statewide election team, and they will run the whole gun distinction candidate program, where we send a survey to everyone who qualifies to run for office. And really, we go from the executive offices all the way down to school boards now. Yes, anyone who's qualifying to run for office, we send them a survey about their opinions on common sense gun legislation. And once those surveys get returned back, we then hand out gun sense distinction to candidates so that voters know, hey, this candidate would enact common sense gun laws. And so that's the first thing we're doing. And that team is just getting started because it's a big year for, elections. Yes. So then once that happens and we have primaries, then we'll really start literally pounding the pavement. We have volunteers who knock doors, who do phone banking, who write letters, and we're out at as many events for our common sense gun distinction candidates as we can possibly get volunteers for. And we try to do that with this team that's making moms aware, hey, Justin's doing a door knocking Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4. He needs volunteers. Moms, can you go? And so that's what we're doing. We're trying to sort of be the go-between between the candidates who've set up all of their events and getting volunteers to push them out there, and really just trying to raise the awareness of what these candidates stand for and make voters aware of what they're doing when they go into the voting booth. So that's what we're doing this year.
Listen, Tennessee moms go hard. So I I just feel all this electrifying energy inside of me as you talked about what you're doing. Thank you so much, Barbara, for leading that ship.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to need you in the Memphis area. And so
Yes.
excited for that. I think for us, I got two things. I've been asked by the Tennessee Caucus of Black State Legislators to lead an initiative called Activate Tennessee. We have hundreds of thousands of voters who are inactive, which means they haven't voted or engaged in the political process in the last 4 years. And if they do not in the next 4 years, they are going to be purged from the voter rolls. Unfortunately, in our state, voting is more of a privilege than a right. So if you don't use it, you can lose it. I don't think that's right, but that is the way that our laws are written. And so over the next several months here, up until May 1st, starting in March through May, we'll have on Tuesdays and Thursdays phone banking to all roughly 500,000 people to let them know that their right to vote is in jeopardy and that they need to engage, they need to vote, they need to be a part of the process, and send them some resources, nonpartisan resources, but send them some resources on what they can do to vote and participate in the electoral process. I'm deeply worried about this because my district, 25% of people are inactive. 143,000 registered voters are inactive in Shelby County, which means that in 4 years, if they don't vote by 2028, that presidential election, in 2029, we'll lose a fourth of our voting power.
Wow.
And then you have a whole effort to re-register people.
Right.
Right. And so we're just trying to get people just now go vote. We have so many elections, county elections, state, gubernatorial, all these things that are happening. Don't wait till the next presidential election. And so I'm leading that effort and going to be looping in a lot of nonprofits and organizations. All of us are all going to be there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All of our organizations. Don't create your own thing. Let's just work together. And have as many people join as possible. And if we get 10 organizations that bring 5 people every Tuesday and Thursday, that's 50 people.
Right.
We'll be able to reach 1,000 people a day and be able to tackle this list. And then the second thing is we're supporting candidates as well through our Movement for Justice PAC who are smart on the issues, looking for gun safety candidates, looking for candidates who care about the environment and the climate, who want to see our state be a better place, but who have a principled progressive values that align with a movement for justice rooted in love. So those are the things I'll be working on in addition to running for office myself.
Wow, I just learned so much from you. I did not know about folks losing their voting power like that.
Absolutely. And one of the challenges in the state of Tennessee, particularly for Black African-American people, 21% of Black folk can't vote already because of felon disenfranchisement. And so we pass a lot of laws in the legislature that make more things felonies, even though we know just because you make something a felony doesn't improve any outcomes. But because we do that, we're seeing more people become and have felonies. And I actually just had a young white lady who's a Republican coming to my office thanking me for a bill that I'm bringing forward at HB 1395, which is to terminate the fees associated with getting your voting rights back. Because it's unfair.
Absolutely.
Right? For people after they've paid their debt to society, they've done all these things that now, while raising a family, while getting back on their feet, while trying to find housing, you also have to spend a lot of money just to get your right to vote back and to instead make that automatic. After you pay your debt to society, you automatically get your voting rights back. And so legislatively, right, that's an angle that I'm also taking.
I love what you said about a movement for justice rooted in love. We really need that right now in this world, right? Especially in our country right now. A lot of people are feeling frustrated, fed up, fearful. As you said, Representative Pearson, beginning of the podcast, folks are being told that what they do doesn't matter, that protesting or calling your lawmakers or writing those letters doesn't matter, when we know that's not true. So it's so important that we remember to have those conversations with folks in our lives and folks that we phone bank, right, about the importance of voting, because it does matter. Yes. And this is your right, and it should not be taken away from you, as you said. And when we vote for gun sense candidates, Barbara, like you said, they win. When we turn out for gun sense candidates and when we educate folks on the issues about who's going to really stand up for their communities and who isn't, we see a huge difference in the folks who are elected. Representative Pearson, I know you said you're running for Congress, and I know you've also spoken to a lot of groups of young people about running for office themselves. What do you want to tell young leaders in this movement, including our amazing Students Demand Action volunteers who might be listening to the podcast, who are doing amazing work in their communities, and who are thinking of maybe making that leap to run for office themselves? Any advice? Any message you want to share?
Absolutely. Do it.
Yes.
Do it. I mean, I have the fortune and privilege of serving in the Tennessee legislature, and I serve with some people who I would not elect myself, but who are the epitome of just the reality. Anybody can be in elected office. Why not you? Right? I mean, I serve alongside people who don't support gun safety legislation, who don't even believe climate change is real. Right? And so if we can get some people up here and in positions of power who understand the issues, who read about them, who research them, who come from the movement itself, and who are engaged actively with people on the ground, who say, I've knocked doors, I know how to talk to people, I understand issues, I've read about it, I've seen the presentations, I participated in conferences. People who have a willingness and a heart to serve are the exact people we need in politics. Yes. We don't need any more people who say, I've been a lawyer for 50 years and now I want to go retire. Enough of that. We don't need people who've been in office 30 and 40 and 50 years.
That's
who
right.
were part of the problem, right? That they're now promising us they can solve. It's time for them to go ahead and retire and do some civic organizing themselves. We need some new energy to help us in every level of government. And this is the advice I have for people. Volunteer on a campaign. I did not grow up proximate to elected officials. My folks were financially poor and spiritually rich. We didn't have money, so we weren't donating to campaigns. Like stuff like that was not happening for us. Closest I ever got to a campaign was President Obama's campaign. We went to a office that he had near our home, but we got a flat tire, so we couldn't go out and knock any doors. So that was the closest I got, and I was about 12. But my recommendation now for young people is you can do things online. You can phone bank. You can join a Zoom. It's so easy to learn how to run for office. The hard thing is we still got to get money out of politics. But listen, if you want to run, reach out to me. I got a pack. I can get you started because we do. We need good people. We need young people. We need new energy, new ideas, even for people who are more seasoned. If they got the right energy, the right ideas, that's what we are missing right now. And we need gun violence prevention to be a priority of both parties because this can't fall off because we're talking about affordability now. No. This is still the number one killer of children in the United States of America. Right. It deserves our prioritization. I care a lot about expanding access to healthcare. Everybody needs healthcare. I'm with all that, right? I'm with you. But we cannot forget that this must be a priority of our communities because this, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, whether you're white, black, Latino, the stat is the stat. It is the number one killer of children under the age of 18, right? We're seeing a tragic increase in the amount of suicides, particularly with young black men, right? Like using guns. Like this is a real issue. And so we need people in power who understand it because it's intersectional with the other things that we care about as well.
And I might add something here too for young people. The reality is they have grown up in a world that is completely different from the world that I grew up in. Like I talk in particular about my 24-year-old. She has never known a world where there weren't active shooter drills in school.
Right.
That was a common thing for her. And we look at all these kids who are now in college and are young adults. They've lived this. There's high levels of anxiety. Sometimes they can't function because what we've put them through just in school. And then when they go to parties, and then there's gun violence on the streets. So young people need to step up and run because they've lived all these things that an older generation really just didn't have to live through because the gun laws have just been stripped away. And the result is our young adults nowadays have this lived experience that they can use to help change what's happening to them and for the future.
That's absolutely right. And they're speaking from their hearts. You know, we were privileged to have on the podcast Drew Spiegel, who's an amazing Tennessee Students Demand Action leader and he's involved in the, you know, the work to call out the gun industry for their role in fueling this crisis. And these young leaders, as you said, they've lived this. They know a brighter world was possible. And frankly, they're pushing the rest of us along with them. Representative Pearson, as you said, they are the new energy. They are the people who think that more progress than we've made so far is possible. They're not here to compromise and water down. They're here to have some big progressive change. And that is so exciting. And I'm excited about the future based on the amazing Students Demand Action leaders that I've met in this work.
Well, I always tell the young folks, Miss Nikita is here to open up doors for them, kick down doors for them, open windows, whatever the thing is, because I've done my part where I'm supposed to be. My job now is to open up doors for them and to be able to teach them the skills that I've learned over the years. So if young people tell me they want to do something, I'm all ears. I'm trying to help them figure out how to do it. So thank y'all for sharing so much wisdom and having so much faith in our young people. Before we go, I'm not going to let you get away. We always ask everybody that attends the podcast, because we know that you do this work tirelessly day in and day out. What are you doing to take care of yourself? And Barbara, why don't you start?
Doing a lot of yoga.
Ooh,
And a lot of walks
yoga.
with my dog where I don't listen to podcasts. No offense, but just quiet.
Yes.
Yes.
Like turning the noise off.
Yes.
And those have been the two biggest things that have really helped me in the last couple of years.
That silence is powerful.
It really is.
You passed the test. Good. Yes. How about you, Rep Pearson?
I'm trying to be like Barbara. I need more yoga. I need more dog walking. Look, I think for me, honestly, the thing that I've been doing the last couple months of the year, I've been going to the gym every morning at about 6 o'clock. It's kind of like first thing, when I'm in Nashville serving, I stay close enough to either walk to the YMCA or grab a lift. But it's just like making a habit of it.
Yes.
Because the stress is real,
Yes.
and it's stressors obviously in our jobs and movement work, but just the world, right? Like we consume so much information and things are really hard right now, whether it be ICE or the news of mass shootings happening. It's a lot that people who are alive right now get on our feeds and in our life, and taking care of my health in that way has just been a really good thing. And again, I do it either on the phone with my wife or just alone with my thoughts. And it has proven to be really helpful.
Yes. Okay, you passed the test too. I did hear you say that it's about making it a practice. So I'm going to be checking in on you now to make sure
Please
that you're
do.
continuing to do that.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
very important to stay rooted and grounded. And before I pass it over to Kaylin and we close out, I also want to ask you as well, because when it's a lot of fires to put out, sometimes it's hard to stay focused. And sometimes people can lose focus or, fall over here and start dealing with this thing. So if you can share with our audience anything that you do to help you to stay focused and grounded in the work.
That's so good. I can try first, and then Barbara would love to hear what you think too. I think for me, I am big on writing things down. So each morning, just about, I have a journal, and I have at the top, the date, and then what are 3 things that I can accomplish today? What are the things I want to
Love
accomplish
that.
today that I can accomplish today?
Yes.
And then underneath that, I'll add things. And sometimes what shifts from one day shifts to the other. And it allows me to be less distracted, and I can still feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
Right, by checking off one of those 3 things. And so I do make sure that they are doable, right? I'm going to read the bills that are coming up in my committee. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to make sure I call my mom, right? Just like 3 things that I know that these are going to make me happier, these things I want to do, things that I can actually do. And then I kind of start jotting down what's the rest of the stuff, right? Got to go shopping, got to clean clothes, got to do this, got to do all those other things. And then grounded, it's just going back to, and it may sound a little cliche, but why? Why am I doing this, right? For who?
Yes.
For what? For why? And I think a lot about my family. I think a lot about my nephew's sons. I think a lot about our future and the future people who are going to be in this office, who is going to be serving. Because you take some arrows doing this work, as you all know and understand very well. But it's just that recognition that it won't always be like this, right? And like what we are doing really does matter for the people 20, 30, 40, 50 years who are going to be in committees where they're passing all types of good laws.
Yes.
And it's going to be, but it'll be because we knocked. It'll be because we showed up, even when it was hard. It'll be because we didn't shut up and sit down, as so many people have wanted for us to do. Boy,
Such a wise soul. Such a wise soul.
I listen to people smarter than me.
Oh, see, that's what I tell people. Me too. Same thing. And the fact that you said you read the bills. I used to tell our leaders sometimes, I used to say, sometimes you're going to be the person that's going to educate the lawmaker because they haven't even read the bill.
That's 100%
You read
true.
the bill for focus. Yes, snap that up.
That's
yes.
right. That's right. That's right.
We love it. What about you, Barbara?
I started this last year, and I mentioned earlier at the beginning that I started my career as a journalist. And so writing has always been a part of the work that I do and continues to be the part of my day job. But last year, I decided I really wanted to try to take writing back for myself and do it creatively just for me, not for a client or for an assignment. I just wanted to write for myself to kind of let that creativity ground me. And so I have filled a couple of notebooks. I do prompts. I don't do prompts. I read poetry and then write some stuff. But I'm just trying to tap into creativity because I think with all those things, like Justin, you listed all the things you've got to do, and you go through days and weeks and years without just letting yourself just be the creative spirits that we all are. And that really fuels me and grounds me to tap into sort of that creativity. And so that's what I've been doing the last couple of years.
Yes, a woman after my own heart.
Barbara, we're
Snap
kindred.
that up too.
Yeah, that we're kindred spirits because I am also a journalist, and that is also my work. And I also have started to try to do some creative writing. I have not filled a notebook yet, so you're inspiring me. But I've been trying to make time for that, but to just see what comes out on the page and to give your brain an opportunity to think in a different way, to find that creativity. And I think that this probably resonates with a lot of us, but sometimes you feel like your hobby has to have some end goal. Like, you only can start if you're going to write a book. And I just decided I'm a runner also. It's only worth it if I can go run 3 miles. If I can't run 3 miles, then I can't make time for it. And I've been trying really hard with myself to remember that something's better than nothing, right? It doesn't have to be about the end result.
Exactly.
A little bit at a time, like what you're talking about in the legislative fights as well, right? A little bit at a time makes more of a difference than throwing up your hands. And so reminding myself in my own life as well that incrementalism matters, it works, and that we can find time and make time for those things that are important to us. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. I like to just keep myself a little bit open for some magic every day.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Y'all are giving me all the good vibes.
Me too.
I had to write that down. Sorry.
I know. That's
I love
good.
that idea. Keep myself open for just a little magic every day. It's like that sense of wonder that you like lose as an adult, right? And that's honestly what's happened. I think in our politics and in our body politic, it's like things are so hard that we like lost our sense of wonder.
Yeah.
Right? This idea that things could be different, things could be better, like that hope, that possibility. That's really good.
Last spring, I guess, here in Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee, we get fireflies still. We're lucky enough to get fireflies.
Beautiful.
And I told myself, every evening you need to go sit outside for a few minutes and just watch the fireflies.
Just watch the fireflies.
Just watch the fireflies.
Just for a few minutes, because it's magical and it's just, you just kind of walk right past it sometimes. You don't stop.
I love that. There's so many gems and pearls of wisdom, I should say, in this conversation that I'm going to take with me. Before we head out, is there anything that you wanted to share with our amazing volunteers out there? Any message that you wanted to send them? Barbara, we are so grateful to have you as one of our volunteer leaders. Anything you want to share with your fellow volunteer leaders and even folks who have just joined this movement recently?
I would just say, just do something, kind of like you said earlier, something's better than nothing. If you could only join one meeting and do one action this year, start small. Do one thing that you think might help our movement or any movement that you feel strongly about. I think people think they have to just jump all in and do all the things, but you don't. You can start slow.
I love that. Thank you.
Yes.
What about you, Representative Pearson?
I think just sharing your interest, your engagement, your involvement, anything with people who are close to you is so important. Even now, I do more work sharing about suicide and telling people to call 988 at every speech that I give. It's just we have to make more information accessible, and the lives that we're living, the experiences that we're having are extremely powerful. And then just from like a truly spiritually grounding place, be not weary in well-doing, right? For in due season, you will reap if you faint not, right? Like that is, in this thing, it is long, it is hard, it is tough. We face some setbacks, but don't get weary, right? To the point where you're exhausted or you're ready to quit, because eventually, like, we break through and we see things like what Barbara's saying happen. We'll break through. We just have to stay at it and stay dedicated to it. And so just proud and honored to be a part of this community.
Thank you so much, both of you, for this amazing conversation, this powerful, powerful conversation, and for all the work that you're doing in Tennessee.
Thank you. It's so fun to talk to you all.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Tennessee in the house.
Tennessee in the house.
Y'all, even with all that's going on in the world, there are so many reasons for hope. And this conversation reminded me of so many of them. The work Representative Pearson and our Tennessee moms and students do reminds me that while this fight can be tough, our movement is tougher.
Me too, Nikita. And I love that idea that you cannot expel hope. So even in challenging political climates, the folks in our movement do not give up. We double down. We keep demanding action. And because we're willing to stay in this marathon long after the other side has tired themselves out, I know that we will win.
Yes, we win, baby. That is right, Kaylin. So thanks to all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. And as always, tell us what you think. Send us your thoughts, feedback, and stories to movementbuilders@everytown.org. And again, it's movementbuilders@everytown.org.
And please keep sharing this podcast with your fellow volunteer leaders and team members, and tell us more about the topics you want to hear about in 2026. Thanks for listening to Movement Builders. I'm Kaylin.
And I'm Nikita. Thank you for all you do to save lives. It's working.